My name is Wainwright Hamilton. My topic is climate, econometrics, and backcasting geospatial interventions, case study, the beautiful Turks and Caicos Islands. Now, there has been a lot of noise in the TCI on climate change, lots of literature, lots of technical and infrastructural interventions, but the population is still trying to discern a signal as to what exactly to do. The topic has been crafted on two pillars of action which can be taken to alleviate or address this problem. The first pillar is backcasting, which is really defining a desirable future and working backwards to identify policies and programs that will connect that specified future to the present. Invariably, we are asking ourselves, if we want to attain a certain goal, what actions must be taken to get there? The second pillar is climate econometrics, which is really the application of mathematical statistics to economic data to lend empirical support to the models constructed by mathematical economics and to obtain numerical estimates. The focus is really on disentangling complex relationships between human actions and climate responses and their associated economic effects. We can apply here in TCI climate econometrics on a range of elements, from probabilistic projections of future sea level rise to the economic impacts of climate change, to estimating hurricane damages, and to modeling the key determinants of carbon dioxide emissions. The implementation plan crafted is constituted of 7 key activities. Number 1, a determination of the projected effects of climate change in the TCI. Number 2, data collection to address the projected climate shocks and stressors. Number 3, gathering the expertise to access data and make it reusable. Number 4, translate climate data to risk indicators. Then translating risk indicators to potential impacts. The 6th course of action is public education, followed by the very critical government and citizenry support. So let's disaggregate those 7 courses of action. We have determined the effects or the potential effects of climate change to the TCI, which immediately include sea level rise and storm surge, warmer ocean temperatures, greater frequency and increased intensity of hazards, particularly hurricanes, increased vulnerability of population and critical infrastructure, loss of property, lives and livelihood, and finally, economic recession. The image to your right shows the beach erosion along Front Street in the island of Grand Turk. The next pillar is really to ascertain the data which is necessary to be collected to address these climate shocks and stressors. These include storm surge modeling, temporal analysis, spatial analysis, hedonic models, fused with GIS, which is really to address the property valuation and the effects of climate on valuations, mapping of aquatic environment, climate gentrification, both direct and indirect, and econometric modeling of the potential effects of climate change. We then therefore need to gather the expertise to access data and make it reusable. For this, we need the expertise of researchers and educators, geospatial professionals, legal practitioners, built environment technocrats and environmentalists, financial professionals, policymakers. This list is by no means complete. The image to the right shows the dockyard settlement of Providenciales, which is really an informal settlement, which has sprawled out of the boundaries of this property and is really calling on the technocrats to address this problem based on the increased vulnerability it is causing. We will then therefore need to translate climate data to risk indicators. And the risk indicators identified are climate action failure, biodiversity loss, extreme weather events. And these indicators are listed as, are broken down really as, how do we translate these climate data to risk indicators? We will need to access climate data at scale, meaning making it accessible to the non-technical folk, transforming really complex data to a usable form, particularly in schools, exploring future scenarios of which we can draw quickly on global cooperation, internationalize innovations, and developing the scientific nous to green the innovations that we need. Then we will need to look at the risk transfer mechanisms where increased vulnerability, will the insurers of this world be willing to take on these risks or at what cost? So risk transfer may be shifted to the individual level, which is causing an economic strain, therefore an economic slowdown on the territory, which may result in a lost generation. Then there is the case of urban migration and urban sprawl, just as what we saw there in Dockyard in Providenciales, where persons are leaving other islands, flocking to this place for employment, etc., without the financial wherewithal to secure proper residential components. Then we will need to translate risk indicators to potential impacts. And here we'll need to identify the hypothetical solution based on the Turks and Caicos's reality. We will need to identify economical and technical fundamental changes. We will need to explore the energy transition to net zero ideals, shifting from the fossil fuel model that is now operating. The citizenry will need to understand individually and collectively the actions to be taken. And this entire risk profile that is being created, we will finally need to convert this risk profile to financial costs to the stakeholders. Now, to gain the support of governance and the citizenry, specific to the TCI, you gain government support or attention through financial implications. what is the cost of what is to be done? How will it affect us financially or economically? You gain the citizens' attention here through the physical implications. What will this mean to my movements, to my quality of life, to my surroundings? And this is really facilitated through public education, which must then therefore be of sufficient clarity, relatability, practicality. These are my references, and I now take your questions and comments.